Take a second and think about one of the biggest arguments you've ever had as a couple. Okay, now let me share your mine. I'm just going to bank on the fact that I won't necessarily ever meet you personally. So I'm going to share what one of our biggest arguments is. I travel for a living. I'm a professor, but I also travel for a living speaking. I've come to one community church a bunch. I love it. So sometimes I get caught up in my travel and what I'm going to speak on, and things slide in the house, right? I just don't think of certain things. So one morning, when the kids were young, I was finishing my PhD, I was traveling, my wife surprised me with a breakfast tray. A piping hot cup of coffee, a rose that was in a vase, the sports page of the News and Observer on the front, and she said, "How do you want your eggs?" And she just walked out of the bedroom. And I thought, people say marriage is work? What is work about this? There was a card. She had put lipstick on and kissed the front of the card, right? I opened the card, and it says, "Happy Anniversary." Oh, my word. I had totally forgotten. Totally forgotten, because I was busy speaking at marriage conferences. Thank you. Right? I had totally forgotten. Now, listen, I'm a conceptual person. I'm not a detail person. So conceptually, I never forgot we were married. I just forgot the date, okay? But there was dead silence coming from that kitchen. I was pretty sure I wasn't going to get eggs that morning, right? So we had to have a long conversation about my schedule, right? Now, let me tell you what communication theorists say about conflict. The most important part about conflict is the conversation you have with yourself before you actually have the conversation with your spouse. What you do, communication theorists say, before the conflict talk is the most important thing, because you have to prepare yourself, or this is just going to go off the rails. I mean, have you ever tried to do that? You ever tried to sit down and talk about finances or the kid's schedule, and it just goes south in a heartbeat, right? That's because we didn't adequately prepare for it. Now, the Bible actually talks a ton about this. James says this. James in chapter 3 says, "I want you to be open to wisdom that comes from above." And he mentions a bunch of different things, but let's just focus on three. Pure thoughts, a gentle spirit, and are you open to reason? Right? Those are three qualities that he says is heavenly wisdom from above. So first, pure. What are your motives for wanting to have this talk, right? Is it that you want to retaliate? Is it that you want to wound? Is it that you are desperate to prove that you are right in this situation? I don't know if that's what James means by pure. By pure, he means, do you go into this talk, right, about forgetting your anniversary, but do you do it with a pure intention? Is your goal to bring harmony back? Is your goal to apologize if you need to apologize, right? And if you're just not there yet, I get that, but you're not ready to have that conversation yet. If your spirit is not in the right place, do not have that conversation. It'll go sideways in a heartbeat. So the first step is to ask yourself, are my intentions pure? Second, am I prepared to be gentle in this conversation? Now listen, I was on the debate team in college, okay? I love to give rebuttals. I love to argue with people, and that is not a gentle way to enter into a disagreement with my spouse. You know, Paul says an interesting thing in Galatians chapter 6. Paul says this, if a person's been caught in a trespass, okay, the person is wrong, they've been caught in a trespass, a sin, you who are spiritual, wow, notice that descriptor, I want you to restore such a person with all gentleness, right? Isn't that interesting? So if you're heading into a conflict with your spouse or child, and you can't wait to have it, I'm so ready to set you straight, and I've thought of it, and I've got this evidence, this evidence, this evidence, I don't think you're ready, pure-wise, nor with gentle words. And then lastly, and I hate this one, are you open to reason? Which means I might be wrong in this particular disagreement. And by the way, I was totally wrong in forgetting our anniversary, right? That is totally my bad. I was so caught up that it simply came and went and was a great illustration that my schedule was just way too packed. So am I open to the input of other people? If you're not open to what your spouse has to say, you're not ready to have this conversation, right? So what we need to do before the conversation about the conflict happens is you need to spiritually prepare yourself. I would suggest going to James chapter 3, verses 17 to 18, and asking the Holy Spirit to invite the Holy Spirit. Remember what King David said, I want you to search my heart to see if there's any ways in me that are not aligning with God's heart. So let me just say, from a communication perspective, before that conversation happens, it needs to be spiritual preparation. In another mini talk, we're going to talk about how to actually structure the conversation, but that structure will not hold unless we've prepared adequately. The book of Proverbs says, drop a quarrel before the dam bursts, right? We need to be spiritually prepared, or these conversations, unfortunately, are going to open the floodwaters.